welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello.
For those of you that are new, we are the Idiot Book Nook. I am Blazewing.
And I am Blue Dragon. Well, actually, I just changed my name, the Reading Dragon. I changed it back to what I was working with when I first started this whole spiel.
So, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to quickly change those things out. Give me 1 second.
And I'm depression.
She is an unhappy Lady Punit at the moment who needs food.
I've been having too many realizations today about my age, my health.
She's going through existential crisis right now. I'm sure I'm sure those who are watching can relate. I personally have been dealing with existential dread and existential crisis for quite a bit now.
Wait, wait. Would you say you've been dragging it on?
Yes.
Aw.
Now, if I had gotten up earlier and had more energy, I would be in my own Hogwarts professor original character today. Blazewing and Lady Punit have dressed up as their characters. Professor Bitterwood, the vampire journalist, and Lady Punit is Professor Thornwick.
So for those of you that don't know, we are all from the Hogwarts Professor's Tag on TikTok, or at least what remains of it. You guys might remember a few years back in 2019, it took basically TikTok by storm and everybody was obsessed with it. There are a few of us that continue the tradition, but I mean, it's nowhere near its former glory, so.
Especially since since those of us here, we have been part of the group that's like, hey, let's take back the story from IRL Rita Skeeter.
Yeah. So, with that in mind, a lot of us have grown up with Harry Potter in our lives. I know for me, it was there during a really rough period in my life, and it helped guide me through some things, and I found solace in the halls of Hogwarts. And for me, that means an inability to let it go. I literally cannot. But the author of the series has had some opinions that are less than favorable. The author of the series has come out in opposition to trans individuals and the gender non-conforming community. And we want to stress that we do not condone her views.
Nope.
This is a safe place for trans individuals and gender non-conforming individuals to gather, and we want to stress that right off the bat. For me, Hogwarts was home during a turbulent time in my life. A very turbulent time in my life. It helped see me through a good chunk of my transition. I don't know what it meant for you two. I don't know if you guys want to go into that a bit.
When some of the later books were coming out, I want to say my introduction to it was Half-Blood Prince. I asked because I was part of the Big Brother Big Sister program at the time. This was in elementary to middle school. I asked my big sister at the time to get Half-Blood Prince for me, and she said, "Okay, but you got to read the other books before you get to Half-Blood Prince." And I said, "Okay." And it ended up being a little bit of a hyperfixation for a bit. And during that time, I was also going through my mom passing away because she passed away in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a way to disconnect from everything going on around me.
Yep.
So that was my escape for a really long time. And Half-Blood Prince, I got through it in about a month through school. And then when Deathly Hallows came out, I remember it only took me 3 days to get through. I stayed up late a lot.
I remember standing in the midnight line for Order of the Phoenix, the Half-Blood Prince, and the Deathly Hallows. I remember walking home, like, this was the midnight lineup, like, the first release of it, you know, big, when all the bookstores were putting on their parties, right? And they were doing these, like, Harry Potter-themed, literally book parties. Like, Chapters was doing this. Chapters is a huge bookstore up here, not unlike Barnes and Noble in the States. I remember walking home at midnight with my nose buried in a book, reading by the streetlight. It took me about 45 minutes to an hour to walk home from my local Chapters. But I read all the way home, and it took me like a day and a half to 2 days to finish off. I think it was Order of the Phoenix. What about you, Thornwick?
Reading was always really hard for me due to a language learning disability that I currently still have, although I've managed to overcome it. But if it wasn't for a grade 4 teacher I had, I was finally able to read at my grade level. And Harry Potter, at that point in time, already had one of the first movies out. So I loved the movie a lot. So they were like, oh, hey, it's based on a book series. And I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, I'll try. But when you have a learning disability, reading is hard. So it was really hard for me to get through it. Eventually, though, and I don't remember when, I just started to become really into the books. And I remember once, it was when the last book came out. So that would have been the Deathly Hallows. We were camping, and I had my friend with me, and my mom had to literally take the book from me because I was spending more time reading the book than hanging out with my friend. And told me, you invited your friend along. You have to play with your friend. And I told her, but Mom, it's the last book. I have to know how it ends. And she said, if you don't play with your friend, I will read the last chapter and tell you how it ends.
Ah!
Jesus.
Yeah. Bearing in mind, my mom is or / was a teacher / principal. So she valued reading a lot. She loved the fact that I was reading.
Yeah.
But she also knew that if I didn't, like, have some kind of boundary set, I wouldn't stop and ignore my friend the whole time.
So, before I get into my comments on that, Jordan the Dude, 2822, welcome to the stream and thank you for the follow.
Hi, Jordan!
Grim is joining us this morning.
Yes!
Grim is another one of our fellow Hogwarts professors. So.
We got Grimmy!
Weaponizing books like that. Wow. Like, I get why or kind of where she was coming from, but at the same time, brutal.
I also can't tell if this is just my brain making the situation worse than it actually was, because my brain's been known to do that. But I remember she did something to make me play with my friend and told me, you can read your book once it's past, like, dinner time and we're sitting by the campfire roasting marshmallows.
So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's how it happened. And I got through Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows in about 2 or 3 days. Because I was that hyper fixated on finishing it.
So, for those of you that are unaware, this series is going to be turned into podcast episodes. The way we have decided to frame it is we are going to do 1 chapter per podcast episode. And the way the chapters, the way this is going to work for each episode is we're going to read a chapter and then we're going to sit down and we're going to have a discussion about it. We may do multiple chapters per streaming session, but there will only be 1 chapter per podcast episode that we will discuss. So we'll see how that goes. I want to say the first few chapters opening the story as we kind of delve into it aren't going to be really exciting, but we're still going to do our best to have a discussion. After which we do our wrap up and takeaways, and then we'll plug our socials and all of that jazz. If you guys want to find us, you should be able to find us at anchor.fm/Idiot Book Nook. Does anybody have that link handy at the moment?
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. I'm also posting our Twitch stream real quick.
Cool. So that's gonna be a thing, and we've decided that we want to introduce ourselves a bit more in depth. At least I think that's what we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So, going around, your name, a couple of interests, what kind of books you like to read, and your favorite book of all time.
Oh no.
And if we want to get into further discussion, how we met, and then your hopes, goals, dreams, episode format, expectations, etc. So, let's start with The Reading Dragon.
All right. Hold on. What was the so
Name a couple of interests, what kind of books you like to read, and your favorite book of all time.
So my name is Avonlea. I go by the Reading Dragon. I have been since before 2019. Jesus, because I have my own YouTube channel called The Reading Dragon where I do narrate books, and I prefer reading fantasy and sci-fi novels. And I generally start from like young adult to mature, especially on my channel. And sorry, I'm still waking up. I do hope that I can do more narrations in the future now that scheduling is kind of permitting it, but again, I'm still structuring trying to structure scheduling things so that way I can do that, and I also need to build myself an actual recording space. Uh, and hopefully throughout this I can get back into it a little bit. So for those that are hearing this from my YouTube channel, hi, welcome, good to see your faces again. Um, what other questions were there? Sorry.
Favorite book of all time, some interests, and hopes and dreams.
Oh, I really like crafting and I like storytelling and narrating, and I also like creating stories and worlds and whatnot, as these two lovely ladies know, because they are also part of my Dungeons and Dragons campaign that I'm in the process of recording and just need to edit so that way I can have it on my own podcast. And my favorite book of all time, that's a bit of a difficult question because I have a lot of favorite books. Um, my first kind of favorite series was the Charlie Bone series, and then I really got into the Queen's Thief series. And in fact, the first book, The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner, is actually on my YouTube channel to listen to all the way through. I do a chapter each episode in narration, and I was working on the Queen of Atolia for the second book before the pandemic hit. And I again, part of my hopes and dreams is to get back into that and do more narrations and more storytelling full time, uh, and actually start doing a little bit of a living off of that, or at least create some sort of income doing that. And then, is that it?
Yeah, if you're comfortable with that, that's it.
Oh yeah, and I met these two through TikTok as well, because I got in 2019 was when I got into TikTok and the Hogwarts Professors tag with my character, Professor Moonchild of Care of Magical Creatures, because that was my favorite subject throughout reading the entire series and watching the films. I like animals, what can I say? It just seems so adventurous, and you get to see all these new creatures and learn about them, and I wish they would do more with that outside of Fantastic Beasts. So I took on that job.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Thornwick.
Okay, my first name's Paulina. My tag is, well, I have two tags. One is Lady Punit, and the other is Paulina.Avalon. The reason for Lady Punit, actually originally was based on a nickname I had as a kid that my brothers gave me. However, it used to be P Unit because they liked playing armies a lot and they just took my first name, but by happenstance, it spells out Pun It, and I like pun. So it just kind of stuck. Some facts about me. I like Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a seamstress. I make a lot of my own costumes, as well as plush toys and clothing. I own 2 cats who you will often hear me yelling at to stop doing things.
Yep.
So that may be a thing during these recordings. Just a heads up, you may hear her refer to Nugget or Nacho. Those are her cats.
Yes. I also really like to play video games of different types. My video game likes actually reflect my book likes. I like things with high fantasy, especially those with a lot of lore behind them.
Mm-hmm.
Or a set magic system of some sort. My favorite book of all time is a bit hard to determine because it depends on what stage of my life I was in. When I was younger, my favorite author had been a woman by Cornelia Funk who made The Thief, as well as a book called, she's actually the author behind the Inkheart series, which is on our possibly to read list.
Our list is grown.
Yeah.
Our list. Later on, it became the Percy Jackson series along with Harry Potter. Currently, though, off the top of my head, if I had to pick something, it is a book by the same author as Percy Jackson, which is The Kane Chronicles, which follows 2 twin siblings with Egyptian gods.
Ooh.
Cool.
As for how I met these guys, they met me through, well, 2 of my characters, actually, one of them being this one, Professor Rune Thornwick, who is the non-magical self-defense teacher, because in all honesty, a lot of problems could have been solved if wizards just thought to punch each other in the face. And my other student character, Rosette Rowe Shellwood, who is a currently 5th year Hufflepuff student who causes chaos and mischief with her pranks, but is also an ideal student because although she causes mischief and mayhem, she actually pays attention in class and gets relatively good grades despite for the fact that she only just got a wand that works for her.
Damn.
She's also going through trauma.
Damn ducks.
All the ducks. All
of the ducks.
So
I met these guys a bit later because I actually got into the tag a bit later than most. I got it like near the end of 2019. It was actually after I believe it was the Masquerade Massacre. I got in after that because that's when I first discovered about it because a student actually introduced me to TikTok. Still love that student very much. Shout out to them. But yeah, so I met them through Ro because Ro just kept causing mischief and putting rubber ducks everywhere.
Yep. I think our first, my first duet with you was when Ro had started dressing like Blacktide, and Moonchild was like, "Oh, are you like taking after Blacktide?" And she's like, "Yup." And then Ro gets made fun of, and then she hands her glasses over to Moonchild to go beat up a kid. And it is like, no.
Well, no, it wasn't even them making fun of her. It was the fact that someone had referred to Blacktide as a mudblood, and another's. No, someone referred to Professor Aldrich as a mudblood, and as Blacktide as a drunkard.
Yep.
Well then, for those of you that are listening in the podcast, that will be coming out later. Our first episode will be coming out on the 7th. At least that's what we have planned.
Yep.
Our links to all of our socials will be in the show notes for that. As for me, sorry, go ahead.
And I posted the link to our Anchor page
in the Twitch chat. Awesome.
Yeah.
As for me, I am Blazewing. I have been Blazewing since 2010. At this point, it is a lot like my legal name. The only difference is one of them is legal and one of them is not. My interests are varied. I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I have interests in crafting, interests in reading, interests in writing. My huge thing is travel, though. I like to travel. Seeing someplace new always gets me. What kind of books I like to read? Sci-fi and fantasy. I like to read apocalyptic stories. I like to read kind of urban fantasy stories, alternate universe stories, that sort of thing. And as for my favorite book of all time, as much as I love Harry Potter, there is one book that I will always treasure. It was actually a gift from a friend who at the time was living in the States, a friend that I no longer am in touch with, unfortunately. They mailed the book to me. I lost it, and I found another copy of it, so I don't have the original. But it is a book called Nadia by Pat Murphy. For all intents and purposes, the book is a werewolf book set in as problematic as it is, the settler era of North America, the colonizing era. The thrilling tale of a wolf woman in the Old West, as daring and as exciting as Interview with the Vampire. Growing up on the edge of Missouri wilderness in the 1830s, Nadia knew that she was not like other girls. But when she became a woman and the change came, she discovered how different she was. For Nadia was a shape changer, a werewolf like her mother and father before her. This details her adventures throughout the Old West, up to and including running into a love interest that she carries and helps care for throughout their trek from it's not the Oregon Trail, but it's one of the trails that led across like the wild frontier, right?
Mm-hmm.
The book has some problems. It was written in the 90s, but that being said, it is still a piece of literature that I do enjoy from time to time. But I don't speak for the problems that the book itself has, because it is technically dated by its time.
Yep. Oh, Jordan the Dude asks, is Ro short for something?
Ro is actually short for Rosette. She doesn't like going by Rosette. She was named after her late aunt, because her very overprotective mother lost her during the last battle of Hogwarts, and she never fully recovered from that. So, bearing in mind that my timeline is all wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. But yeah, Ro prefers to go by Ro. She doesn't like Rosette. She thinks it's a bit too formal for her liking. The most she will let someone call her that's closer to her actual name is Rosie. And only her uncle and aunt call her that. Everyone else typically calls her Ro.
Yep.
So if Ro gets into trouble, do you think it would be... how do I put this? Do you think it would be outside of the realm of possibility for Bitterwood just to, like, yell out her full name at some point?
Oh, well, her cousin, who is also my Hogwarts character, has used her full name multiple times on her, and her full name is Rosette Liliana Shellwood.
I'm going to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Same.
Yep. It is canon that Rosette keeps bringing animals from the forest into the dorms.
Mm-hmm.
So,
giving Moonchild a heart attack every time.
Gonna keep that in mind. But, with that being said, guess what?
What?
I think, since we have time limit this morning,
we don't. Oh, I actually just got a phone call from my doctor. We're doing a telephone thing today, so I don't actually have to leave at 1 p.m., so I could go until about like 2 p.m.
Okay, so we have a bit more time, but we still do have a time limit.
Mm-hmm.
But for those of you that have grown up with Harry Potter, I want to welcome you back to joining us for the adventure once again. Please enjoy the discussion. We may or may not interact with the Twitch audience, just a heads up. We may leave that until the discussion portion.
Mm-hmm.
But for those of you that haven't had a chance to read the Harry Potter books and have only seen the movies, I want to say that just the books contain so much more lore, so much more knowledge, and I want to thank you for joining us. Enjoy the adventure. It only comes once. You can relive the adventure all you want, but your first time into the book only comes once.
Yep.
I know for me, there's a lot of emotions every time I go through this series. So with that, I believe the Reading Dragon is narrating. So, Reading Dragon, please take it away.